Welcome to Math with Mrs. Cox. We're in Chapter 8, Lesson 8, page 595, Write Fractions as Decimals. We're going to begin by showing you this cute little guy right here. The 10th spot also looks like this. If I get markup going on here. 1/10 and 1/100th. That's going to help us learn where the numbers go on our place value. Let's begin. The average weight of a tennis racket is 2/5 of a pound. Write this weight as a decimal. Write 2/5 as a decimal. Well, we needed to write that 2/5 with an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 10 or 100. It's going to be easier to do 10. So to get 10, we times 5 by 2. So whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So 2 times 2 is 4. So 4/10 will help us figure out how to write this as a decimal. And we can write 2/5 will equal 4 in the 10th spot, or 4/10, which means 4/10, or 4 in the 10th spot. We can use this place value chart to also discover that as well, where they put 4 in the 10th spot. It read 4/10. The average weight of a tennis racket is 4/10 of a pound. Now we're going to write 3/4 as a decimal with the equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. So think of quarters. How many quarters does it make to make 100? That's right, 4 times 25 would equal 100. Whatever we times the bottom by, we need to times the top by. So we need to now times 3 times 25 to equal 75. 75 over 100 also looks like this. 75 hundredths, or 75 over 100. And this is the word form, 75 hundredths. So we read the decimal as 75 hundredths. Guided practice. Write 1/5 as a decimal. Well, we need to convert it to either a tenth or 100th, and a tenth is a little bit easier. So we're going to times them both by 2. 5 times 2 is 10, so we must times the top by 2 as well. 1 times 2 is 2. So 1/5 is 2/10. And to write write it as a decimal, to read it, we would say 2-tenths. Write 11/25 as a decimal. Think of quarters again. We have to round that to either a 10 or 100, and 100 would be a little bit easier. 100. So 4 of those quarters will equal 100. So we need to times the top by 4 as well. So we have 44 over 100, which means 44 goes in the hundredths spot. And we would read the decimal as 40-4 hundredths. Write each fraction as a decimal. Now you can use your place value chart on your desk if you wish, but think about this. 8/10. So that means that there's going to be an 8 in the 10ths spot. This is tenths. Next we have number 4, we have 1/20. So we need to convert that to either a 10th spot or a 100th spot. So I'm going to do 100ths. So for it to equal 100, 20 is times by 5. Whatever you times the top by, you need to multiply the bottom by, and vice versa. So we did 5 right here. We're going to times 5 up here. So 5 is going to go in the hundredths spot. So we have our whole number, tenths, hundredths. That is what the answer to 4 looks like. Number 5, same story. We have that bottom number that is a 20. I'm going to convert it to the hundredths. So 20 will go into 100 5 times. So we need to times 17 times 5. Five times 7 is 35. 5 times 1 is 5, 6, 7, 8, 85. So we have 85 that's going to go in the hundredths spot. So here's our whole number, and our tenths, and our hundredths. 85 hundredths. 4 25ths. 4 25ths. We can probably convert that to hundredths. So either is 4 quarters in a dollar. 4 25s equal 100. So we need to multiply the top by 4. 4 times 4 equals 16. 16 hundredths. I have to put a 0 in the ones placeholder. And 16 hundredths. 1/10. Yay, I like that. 1 in the tenths spot. 8 25ths. Times by 4 times 8 times 4. 32. So 0 on the one spot, 32 hundredths. 14 over 25. Looks like we're going to convert it into hundredths. So there is 4 of them. So we have to do 14 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So we're going to have 56 hundredths. So put a 0 in the one spot, and then we have 56 hundredths. 1/4. So we're going to convert that to a 10 or 100. I'm going to do it to 100 because I know that 25 times will equal 100. So I have 25 over 100. My answer is going to look like this, 25 hundredths. Okay, there's a 20 in the bottom. We're going to convert to 100. Seven times 5 is 35, so we have 35 hundredths. Put a 0 in the whole number spot, 3 in the tenths, and 5 in the hundredths spot. 35 hundredths, that's what that fraction says. We've made it equivalent, and that turns it into a decimal, easy peasy. 1/25 into 100 times 4 times 4. So 4 is in the hundredths spot. Now be very careful. Now pay attention. Whole number, tenths spot, hundredths spot. Don't forget that extra 0, so to show that it's in the hundredths spot. 9 tenths. 9 would go in the tenths spot. 9 25ths. We can convert that to an equivalent of fraction by making this into 100. There are 4 of those in 100, so 9 times 4 is 36. So 36 in the hundredths spot. There's our whole number. 3 in the tenths and 6 in the hundredths. 36 hundredths. Find the unknown. Okay, so we have, looks like 100. 20 will go into 100 how many times? Times by 5. So to find G, we must divide by 5. 65 divided by 5. So right here, I can do that work. 65 divided by 5. 5 will go into 6 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. Bring down the 5. 5 will go into 15 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. It works out all nice and pretty. So G is 13. Okay, 16. 7 is in the 10th spot. So I know that 7's in the 10th spots. It's also the same as saying 7 divided by 10. So 7W equals 10. Over here, 18 is like saying 18 over 100ths. 50 will go into 100 2 times. So if I multiply by 2, I can divide by 2 up here to get the answer, which would be 9. The smallest known female spider, which is creepy, is 23/50ths millimeters long. The smallest male spider ever known is 37/100ths millimeter long. Write each fraction. We have to make an equivalent fraction of either tenths or hundredths. I'm just going to say it could be easier to do 100. 50 will go into 100 twice. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 23 times 2. 46 hundredths. And that is written like this. 46 hundredths. Semicolon. Okay, now we have 37 hundredths. Oh, well that's easy. Written that as a decimal would look like this. 37 in the hundredths position. Number 19. Evan drank 2/25ths of a gallon of water throughout the day. Write 2/25ths as a decimal. We have to make it equivalent to either a tenth or a hundredth. And I believe a hundredth would be the easier one of the two. We'll go into it 4 times. So 2 times 4 is 8. We have 8 over 100, so 8 goes in the hundredths spot. Here's the whole number. Tenths, hundredths. He drank that much water. At hockey practice, Savannah made 19 out of 20 shots. There's our fraction. 19 out of 20. Out of is our key words to let us know it is a fraction. Write the fraction of shots Savannah missed as a decimal. Oh, well, if she made 19 out of 20, what's left? 20 out of 20 would have been all the shots. So 20 minus 19 is 1. Bring the denominator over. She missed 1/20th of her shots. Now we need to convert 1/20th into a decimal. So we have 100 right here. How many 20s are in 100? There are 5 of them. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do the top. So 5 hundredths. Now we can find it into a decimal. Here is our ones spot on the place value, tenths and hundredths. What she should have done was 72 over 10 equals 720 is equivalent to 720 over 100. And if you look at that, that's top heavy. 100 can go into 720 7 times and 2 tenths. So that's what would have been more correct for her to write. Juliana did not multiply the numerator of 7 over 10 by 10 when writing the equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. Silly girl. Number 22, what is the relationship between fractions and decimal? Include a fraction and decimal model to help illustrate. Fractions can be expressed as equivalent decimals and vice versa. The fraction of 1/4 and the decimal 0.25 are different forms of the same amount. They both mean 25 over 100 or a fourth of a dollar. Think of a quarter.